Yeah.
Can I say a
I can.
controversial opinion?
I can. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people who want
So
like a purebred dog are weird.
they.
I think that's a weird thing to want.
It's
Like a
like
pure be not like the beagle is weird, but that is a weird thing to like desire.
okay. Um. So basically, there's this farm. No, it wasn't.
No, it was.
Was it?
It was muted the entire time.
It wasn't. I could hear you on
Oh
the
my god,
stand.
guys. Okay, guys, I gotta do it again. The
No,
Ridgeland
Kyle,
Farms.
I
I
could
was
hear
wondering.
you
I
on the
didn't hear it
stand.
echo when I was like listening.
That's brutal. That's brutal. Okay, Em, can you keep talking? I need to mic test you. And then I'm gonna. So that was a practice run, right?
Uh,
I'm gonna shorten it up for you, Em. So I'll do the a better condensed version. I need you to talk.
Okay. So basically, there's this place in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, which is in Dane County, about 30 minutes from the capital of Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, okay. So Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, in Dane County, 30 minutes from the capital of Madison, Wisconsin. It has this place called Ridglan Farms, which is supposed to be like a facility that breeds and sells beagles for biomedical research, which basically the reason they choose beagles for biomedical research, just an offshoot of this, is because beagles are small and docile. They don't bite, they don't fight, they forgive easily, and so they're like the easiest dogs to do these medical tests on. Um, and before we like really get into it, I should also mention medical testing on animals is basically like useless at this point because we have developed things like organ chips where you can basically grow cells on a chip for humans and test all the medications and stuff that you want on these cells, and that will actually provide more accurate research than testing on animals because obviously we don't have the same DNA or the same reactions as a beagle does to anything. And so Ridgeland Farms is breeding and selling these little beagles for medical research, and they're like one of the biggest suppliers in all the United States. And I had no idea this place even existed. They're kind of like under the radar. But I discovered it because um, in March, this guy Wayne, I can't pronounce his last name, HSUI or HSIUNG, I think it's Husing or something like that. Um, he is an animal rights lawyer and activist, and he started developing get these dogs, and or at least try to shut the facility down. I think at first he was going the legal route. I mean, he's a lawyer. He was trying to figure out how to get them out without having to really do much like on the ground. And so there's been like a lot of things that have gone on, but basically he got it reported enough that and like I think he got into the facility and filmed some of these things happening. And so these little beagles, they're in 2 foot by 4 foot cages if they're by themselves. Otherwise, there's like two beagles to like a slightly bigger cage. And they have a water bottle in there, like a water bottle like you put in a hamster cage. And they're these wire cages, like picture of these cages.
your mic
And
isn't
so
coming through
these
Steam
dogs are
anymore.
living in these cages for their entire lives, and they're slightly lifted off the ground, but the dogs have to poop and pee in these cages, which dogs hate, by the way. Like, that's it's offensive to them, and they walk around in it now. And since they're living in these wire cages, they're hurting their little
Sorry,
paw
guys. If you
pads. So
can
a lot of dogs
hear
have
me,
like
I'm trying to figure out how to
ulcers on their paw pads,
make it so that
and
we can talk to each
they're
other and
not
she can
getting
talk about
adequate
this.
veterinarian care because um I don't know, because they don't care enough, I guess. The facility doesn't care enough. And so they're just like, they're in these deplorable conditions. They don't get to come out of these cages unless they're being bred or experimented on. And these experiments, also to save money, are done without anesthesia and without pain medication. So they take these little beagles out of a cage, bring them to a room, and someone has to hold them down while they are operated on, cut into. Their eyes have been cut out. Their vocal cords have been cut out. They have all these random procedures done. Whatever the researchers decide they want to know about, they test it on the beagles. And these little dogs are going through all of this without even getting to like see the sun. Like there was a couple of dogs, so this Wayne guy, in after trying for almost a decade to get these dogs out the right way, finally decided this isn't working because they had an animal behaviorist go into Ridglan Farms to see what was actually up after Wayne was like, no, something's not right here. I have this video proof of these dogs in these deplorable conditions. And so Ridgeland had an animal behaviorist come in because they had some other problem. And the behaviorist kind of agreed with exactly what Wayne had been saying. Like they live in these awful conditions. The dogs are clearly under like severe amounts of stress and psychological trauma. They circle in the cages, and that's just like all day, just spin and spin and spin and spin and spin because they have nothing to do. They can't run. They can't like make friends with other beagles because they're in their own cages all by themselves, and the beagle, like the cage next to them, they can't actually like reach their friend. And she went in there and asked like, hey, could you guys at least put a toy or something in there to keep these guys busy? And they're like, no, that'd be too expensive. And so after Wayne's video evidence and then this animal behaviorist's I guess research on Ridgeland Farms, they took it to a prosecutor who basically said, yeah, this is actually felony charges of abuse. They got hit with like I think 308 or 311 charges, and part of that was felony abuse. And so they would have they could have like gone to trial with this stuff, but Ridgeland Farms basically decided like, no, we'll just take it because we don't want to go to trial, because if they did go to trial, the evidence would come out. They would have to like prove that they weren't doing this stuff, and they can't because they are doing this stuff. So the DA ultimately made a deal with Ridgeland Farms, which is some bullshit, where they decided that if Ridgeland Farms was willing to give up their license to sell the dogs by July 1st, that they would drop all the charges. So Ridgeland is out there claiming, oh no, we have never been found guilty of abuse, and that's bullshit. They're saying that because the charges were dropped if they agree to not sell the dogs anymore on July 1st. And this is just selling. They can still keep their doors open. They can still breed beagles in there, and they can still do their own research. They just can't sell the beagles to other facilities around the United States or the world. I don't remember. They're one of the biggest suppliers. So it must be the world because they sell to Canada. And so they're just not allowed to sell these beagles anymore, but they are still allowed to keep the facility open and keep breeding beagles and testing on beagles. And now that's July 1st, but in between now and July 1st, they're basically allowed to do whatever the fuck they want with these beagles. And that includes they can kill them all off if they want to. They can continue to torture them and do experiments on them without anesthesia. They can do whatever they want. And so in March, Wayne took him and a small group of protesters, and they broke into Ridglan Farms to try and save the beagles. They got, I think, 31 of them out. But the police were called and came and took 8 of those dogs back into the farms. So, not all they only got like 20 something dogs out for real. And there was still approximately 2,000 dogs still in the facility. So he decided that he would organize um, another attempt to go save the dogs, and he needed more people this time. So he started spreading the word, and he decided to do an open rescue. So basically, everyone knows that they're going there. It was scheduled for April 19th. They wanted to get as many people as they possibly could, hopefully 2,000 for each, like one person a dog. And they wanted to go in there and get all the dogs out and save the dogs so they couldn't be tortured anymore. And this was like out in the open. Like they weren't trying to hide it, they weren't going to surprise. And if you went on to savethedogs.io, join one of the teams to go and do this breakout. Okay. Okay. I guess in the meantime, I should say these cherry eye procedures, and these are done by untrained vet techs because the veterinarian in charge was forced to resign, or no, that's was crying in the corner of his kennel. One of the people who worked there said when he first tried to apply for the job, and he didn't know what he was getting into, but when he first applied for the job, they were trying to pick out which exact position he would be filling, and the interviewer asked, "Would it bother you to walk into the facility and see a pile of dead dogs?" And of course, the guy said, "Yeah, that would bother me." And the interviewer's like, "Well, you got to remember, these are not the dogs that you have at home. They're not the same." But they are. They're beagles. You can have a beagle at home. They're the same creature. But I guess that's what they have to say to themselves to be able to perform these horrendous acts on them. But the person who worked there said when he did get the position, he was one of the people who was forced to hold down the dogs while they did experiments and surgeries on them. And so he was told, because they weren't using anesthesia, he was told he just had to hold the beagle as tight as he could while they performed procedures on them. And he said he remembers dogs choking on their own blood and crying, and that's awful. Um,
Definitely some awful stuff we're hearing right now. Welcome to the
and
Ridgeland
so,
Dog Save the Dog stream.
yeah,
We've got our expert Emily here who is just giving us a rundown of the details, and we've got our second expert, expert number one, Emily. Uh, she knows all about the resistance movement that's occurring right now to try and save these dogs. And then we got expert number two, top secret security clearance holder Bunghole, who is gonna give us some expert opinions as well. But right now, I'm gonna let Emily get back to the rundown. We got our expert mod team just filling in the chat with what is going on, so you can read that on the side. If you're interested, you should be, because we're trying to save these dang dogs, guys. But I'm gonna give it up to Emily here, and we're gonna probably do some gaming while Emily talks. I'm just trying to figure out the audio right now, and then we should be able to game, and Emily should be able to talk over us, no problem. Anyway, Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, so Wayne and a team of 2,000 people who were trained, by the way, to go in.
Yeah, I just had my mic muted, so it wasn't. I was watching this.
Wayne and a team of 2,000 people who were trained to go to Ridglan Farms and peacefully protest. They were trained how to do it peacefully, non-violently. They like a bunch of non-violent tactics, so that so it would be peaceful. So because they didn't want anybody to
You want me to talk,
be
you
violent
said?
and go into. The point was to save the dogs, not to get into any fights with anybody. And because it was an open rescue, they
You
had
want me to say
the
marble?
Ridgeland Farms, as well as the police, knew that this was about to happen. So when Wayne and the 2,000 protesters arrived, they were met with armed guards dressed in all black and riot gear.
W. Garrett.
And the Dane County Sheriff's Department, who immediately arrested Wayne when he got out of his car with a manila folder full of papers that he was going to serve to Ridgeland Farms, asking for the release of the dogs. And they arrested him immediately on like basically conspiracy to burglary, which is bullshit.
Who's that?
Shout out Mr. Void, first time chatter. Welcome to the Save the Dogs stream. I don't know if you've checked it out yet, but look at SaveTheDogs.io. We're going to get into some Arc Raiders here, but we've got our expert Emily educating us on the Ridgeland dog situation. This is a transnational situation evolving in Wisconsin and Ontario, Toronto, Ontario at the same time. Emily?
Right. So when the protesters got there, Wayne was arrested, but they decided to continue the operation anyways, because the point was to get the dogs out, and we were I wasn't, but they were going in non-violently. And so when they got there, though, all these guards and police were there, and immediately the police met the protesters with tear gas and with pepper spray and with rubber bullets. So these people who went in there non-violently, hands up, just going in to save the dogs, were sprayed, were gassed, and were shot with rubber bullets. And you could probably look this up just about anywhere. There's tons of videos showing people with injuries. Someone got shot in the face with a rubber bullet, which is not how you're supposed to use rubber bullets. You're supposed to shoot from the waist down. The police were pulling masks off of people to pepper spray them. And these are like grandmas who were there, nurses, teachers, just your normal everyday people who don't do this kind of stuff. And the police were pulling masks off of their face to spray them with pepper spray. And they like dramatically and with so much tear gas that the cloud of tear gas then floated into the nearby facility full of 2,000 dogs who were barking and waiting for someone to come in and save them. And quiet. As soon as the gas went in, the dogs went quiet. So now not only are the protesters being tear gassed, so are the beagles, who are being held against their will in these tiny cages, already traumatized, and now they're gassed. And the protesters fought for a long... Oh, by the way, also, Ridglan Farms knew that they were coming, so they dug a moat around the property and filled it with manure and put giant, big, round hay bales on the other side. And so they were planning for the protesters to have to climb through manure to get into the facility, which is a whole nother issue. They were charged on that by the DA office because they were improperly using manure, obviously. So that's just a sidebar. But in the meantime, the protesters fought for a very long time, all day. They had 4 people, I believe, arrested, and ended up having to quit because people were being beat by the police. Like, one guy ended up clipping part of the fence to try and get people through, and the sheriff's deputy pulled him through the fence and kicked him repeatedly until he knocked him unconscious and knocked his teeth out. And then, once the guy was on the ground, continued to stomp on him while the protesters on the other side of the fence were screaming for somebody to help him. And this guy laid there unconscious with the police just standing over him while everybody begged for him to be able to see a medic. So basically, the Dane County Sheriff's Department is full of pieces of shit. And additionally, the people who live near Ridgeland Farms are also pieces of shit. They have been defending Ridgeland Farms and have been taunting and stalking the protesters. And multiple of them were driving around telling the protesters that they enjoy abusing animals. So, really wonderful to be a member of the state, or a citizen of the state of Wisconsin, the same as these losers. Anyways, the protesters eventually had to give up without saving even one dog, which was horrible. And we ended up protesting at the state capitol to try and get Governor Evers to do anything about it, and he made no comment. Eventually declined to even have a meeting with us because he said that he couldn't do anything else, which is false. And so I might be forgetting some things. You can find more info at savethedogs.io, but as of right now, there are 2,000 beagles being abused at Ridgeland Farms, and the Wisconsin officials are doing nothing about it. So the people have decided that the law is unjust and we need to get the dogs out now before any more of them have to suffer. So I encourage everybody to go to savethedogs.io and find out more information, to spread the word, to put pressure on the officials, and to try and get these dogs out. And then also, like, research any area that you live in, because there's probably other facilities like Ridgeland Farms. There was one in Vigo, in Virginia, which got shut down for similar charges, but actually were doing less than Ridgeland Farms is. And it was decided that they were abusing the dogs, and so the whole facility was shut down. And that hasn't happened here in Ridgeland Farms yet, even though what we're doing is worse. So it's pretty awful. And more people need to know about it so that we can tell them exactly how we feel. Free the beagle. Save the beagle.